everyone. Thank you for joining us for the St. Croix Regional session of Wisconsin Water Week. Welcome to Small Invader, Big Impact. Protecting the St. Croix River from EAB doesn't stop in the winter. This presentation features two distinguished speakers. Katie Sickmann is the Invasive Species Coordinator for the St. Croix River Association and has led the Invasive Species Program since 2018. Katie works with federal, state, and local entities to educate, prevent the spread of, and manage the invasive species throughout the St. Croix River watershed. Colton Sorenson is the Water Quality Specialist for the Polk County Land and Water Resources Department and works closely with Polk County's AIS Coordinator, Caitlin Anderson. As a team, they work together monitoring and preventing the spread of invasive species within Polk County. The Land and Water Resources Department works closely with the St. Croix River Association to collaborate on invasive species prevention and monitoring efforts, which are key to preserving our natural resources. Our presenters will discuss their work for approximately 35 minutes, after which we will take questions from the audience. Please be sure to type your questions in the Q&A section and upvote questions you would like to see answered. Please join me in welcoming Katie and Colton.
Awesome. Thanks, Sophia. Like Sophia said, my name is Katie Sickmann with the St. Croix River Association, and I'm the Invasive Species Coordinator.
Hi, like she said as well, I'm Colton Sorenson with the Polk County Land and Water Resources Department. Today we're going to be looking at the emerald ash borer, small invader, big impact. So just going through kind of the history and the range, the emerald ash borer, or known as EAB for short, is native to Eastern Asia and is primarily a pest of ash trees. Established populations of EAB were first detected in the United States and in Canada in 2002. In European Russia, EAB was first found in Moscow in 2003, but not officially identified until 2005. EAB has become a serious pest of ash trees in North America and European Russia. It is causing widespread tree mortality and is spreading rapidly on both continents. It entered North America from China near Detroit, Michigan, probably on wooden packing crates. It was first detected in Wisconsin in 2008. Since then, it's been detected in 58 of the 72 counties in Wisconsin. Currently, it is the most severe EAB. The most severe EAB damage is concentrated in the southern half of the state. I'll show a map of that later. There are still large areas where we have not detected EAB. Only about a third of the state municipalities have confirmed EAB infestations. In these areas, it may not be present yet, or it may be present in such low numbers that it's not yet apparent. As of 2020, it is now found in 35 states and is also found in the Canadian provinces Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Manitoba. Emerald ash borer has been confirmed in 26 counties in the state of Minnesota. The Minnesota Department of Ag has enacted a quarantine to limit the movement of firewood and ash material outside infested counties. The Minnesota Department of Ag issues quarantines for all counties known to have EAB to reduce the risk of further spread the tree-killing insect. Since its discovery, EAB has killed hundreds of millions of ash trees in North America, caused regulatory agencies and the USDA to enforce quarantines and fines, fines to prevent penalty if you move it out of the area. It's costed municipalities, property owners, nursery operators, and forest product industries hundreds of millions of dollars. Next slide, please, Katie. Here you can see a map of Wisconsin and the current EAB distribution. You can see in the southern portion, which is the green, is where it is located, and then the kind of that yellowish color is where it's not. In the St. Croix watershed, it is found in St. Croix County and Pierce County. So the St. Croix watershed is in the northwest corner of this map. St. Croix County and Pierce is kind of in the southern end, and Douglas is in the north. However, if you see in Douglas County, it does have EAB identified, but it's not actually in the watershed, but it's very close on the northern end, and it's already in the southern end. Next slide, please, Katie. Now we're going to take a look at the Minnesota side. Most of the southern portion of the watershed is infested with EAB. Looking specifically at where Polk County is, it is present across the river, looking in the Minnesota, along the entire county border line. So zooming in on the cities there, it's kind of going off the north end of the cities and following the Polk County line. This is a big area of interest because it is near the river and close to Wisconsin where it not is. So it's a good area to monitor for EAB and prevent the spread of entering into Wisconsin. Next slide, Katie. So now we're going to go through the identification. EAB is an insect that attacks and kills ash trees. It spreads through short distance, natural flight, and infested firewood transport over long distances. The adults are small iridescent green beetles, which is in the left photo, and that live outside the tree during the summer months. The larvae and grub or worm-like live underneath the bark of ash trees. These trees are killed by tunneling of the larva underneath the tree's bark. The larva is shown in the middle photo. Adult emerald ash borers emerge from beneath the bark of ash trees late May through mid-July. They create a D-shaped exit hole as they chew their way out of the tree. The adult beetles are most active during warm and sunny days. EAB adults are not able to travel long distances, and most will travel less than 1 mile in search of a mate. After mating, female beetles will lay 60 to 90 eggs one at a time in the crevices of ash trees. Adult beetles will lightly feed on ash tree leaves but cause little harm to the tree. EAB adults live a total of 3 to 6 weeks. Now going to the egg stage of the emerald ash borer. The eggs are very small, 1 millimeter in size. They're very difficult to see and are hard to find. Female beetles deposit them in the bark crevices, and the larvae hatch from the eggs, then immediately chew their way into the tree. So now we'll go to the larva stage, which is the immature emerald ash borer. This is the most destructive life stage of the insect. Larvae are cream colored with a bell-shaped body segment, which is clearly seen in the center photo there. Their size varies as well as they feed and grow under ash tree bark, but reach a length of 1.5 inches when fully grown. The larvae emerge from the eggs and tunnel into the cambrial layer of the tree, which is just beneath the bark. The larvae wind back and forth as they feed under the bark and create this distinct S-shaped tunnels, which we will look at in a different photo, which are also called galleries. Larvae will feed under the bark for 1 year, potentially two if it's cold, before transforming into the pupal stage. The larvae can survive in greenwood, such as firewood or logs, as long as the bark stays attached. Now we'll go to the pupa stage. In autumn, after 1 or 2 years of feeding under the bark, the larvae will create a chamber for themselves in the tree's sapwood. They will stay in the chamber and overwinter and pupate in the spring, turning into adults. The adult beetles emerge from the tree, completing the life cycle. The pupa, like the larva, can't be seen unless the bark is pulled away from the tree. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture considers May 1st through September 30th to be the flight season for EAB. This means that the emerald ash borer adult beetles are emerging from the infested wood or trees and flying in search of a new host during this time. The emerald ash borer larvae complete their development by pupating into adult beetles in the spring and early summer. However, this process only occurs when temperatures are sufficiently warm, and the whole process requires a certain amount of accumulated heat, which is for the development time. Accumulated heat can be measured and tracked by using degree days, which are a measure of time spent above the threshold temperature for it to survive. So this is just a nice diagram of the life cycle of it. In the top right corner, you can see the egg, then it moves on, and then you can see those galleries or those S-shaped curves from that it's making, and then to the pupa stage. You can see that where it points to where it can be moved by firewood. So over half the life stages pretty much can be moved by firewood. And then looking in the left side there, you can see that D-shaped hole, which we'll get into on the next slide. So signs and symptoms. First we'll go through kind of some general symptoms that any tree can really have. So trees can decline for a number of reasons: insects, disease, soil compaction, winter injury, drought stress, and many other factors. Trees declining from many of these reasons may show general symptoms of tree stress, and these do not specifically indicate EAB. However, these indicators can be early signs of such symptoms which will occur when trees are attacked by EAB. So this first photo is going to be canopy thinning and crown dieback. As larvae feed beneath the bark, they damage tissue responsible for transporting water and nutrients. Initial damage appears as thinning in the upper canopy of the tree, and branches can die over time. Other conditions, disease and soil compaction, can have similar causes for canopy thinning. It can cause canopy to die back in ash trees. So canopy thinning alone does not definitely indicate EAB, but it can be a symptom. This is a photo of Epicormic sprouting, which is when the tree is stressed. They may try to grow new branches and leaves wherever they still can, which is called suckering. Stressed ash trees may have new growth at the base of the trunk or main branches. As with canopy thinning, other sources of stress can cause suckering around the base of an ash tree, and this symptom does not specifically indicate EAB. This is a picture of woodpecker damage. In addition to these two symptoms above, trees infested with EAB are often sought out and attacked by woodpeckers. However, woodpeckers will attack just about any tree full of insects and larvae. Thus, while woodpeckers actively can be an indicator of EAB, it does not sufficiently confirm an infestation. Extensive woodpecker damage is sometimes referred to as flecking or bronzing. The next photo shows the D-shaped exit holes for when the adult emerges. As they emerge from the ash trees in June and July, adults emerald ash borers bore leaves behind a distinct D-shaped exit hole. These holes are approximately 1/8 of an inch wide and can be orientated in any direction, so facing upward, downward, etc. These D-shaped holes are a strong indicator of EAB. Exit holes of native borers will be round or oval, and can vary in size. These can be very hard to see, as by looking in the photo by the person's fingernail, they're very small. And then here's the distinct S-shaped galleries and splitting bark. Trees attacked by EAB have a distinct S-shaped or serpentine gallery like tunnels beneath the bark. These tunnels are approximately 1/8 of an inch wide and are packed with frass, which is a fine mixture of sawdust and insect excrement. As EAB larvae feed, they attempt to create callus tissue around the larva gallery, which can cause the bark to split vertically. The S-shaped galleries and larvae can often be seen if the bark is split or off the tree.
All right, thank you, Colton. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more of emerald ash borer in the St. Croix River watershed. I know Colton talked about this briefly at the beginning of the presentation, but as you can see in the right-hand map of Wisconsin, we've been very fortunate in not being able or not having detected emerald ash borer in the St. Croix River watershed. So Pierce County near River Falls has some confirmed cases of EAB, and same in St. Croix County near Hudson. And then in northern Douglas County, they have confirmed cases, but it's really dancing on that watershed border. So it's still very essential for us to keep up monitoring efforts. And then on the left-hand side in Minnesota, there's confirmed cases in the green in Washington County, which is a part of the St. Croix River watershed, as well as southern Chisago County. So again, like Colton said, it's right on that river line. So we want to make sure that we are monitoring for EAB. All All right. So in 2013, the National Park Service worked together with foresters to plot 50 total tree plots along the St. Croix and Namakagon rivers. And this monitoring resulted in 6 forest types, 2 of those being black ash mixed hardwood and black ash lowland, which accounted for a significant part of the riverway. So this is why emerald ash borer may pose a significant risk to a dominant resource within the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway. So the National Park Service teamed up with the St. Croix River Association to monitor the likelihood of emerald ash borer presence in the counties along the St. Croix River. Recent findings have suggested that the supercooling point, or the temperature at which the insect will die, is at 98% if it reaches 30 below zero. Since weather stations may not be the best indicator of temperature in the forest, hobo loggers, which I'll get to a little bit later, are temperature light recording devices, and they're placed on or around ash trees to see if emerald ash borer is exposed to lethal temperatures during the winter months. So as you can see, National Park Service staff and St. Croix River Association staff go to 10 sites throughout the St. Croix River watershed, as seen on the map on the right-hand side. And this spans all the way from Stillwater in the southern portion of the watershed all the way up to Gordon, Wisconsin. So we have a large reach for sure. And so these hobo loggers are placed at 10 sites along the St. Croix River, and this data is used to determine the potential impacts that EAB can establish in an area and survive, since most of the watershed does not have emerald ash borer. The results are provided to researchers at the University of Minnesota who are trying to develop control mechanisms. Riverway managers hope to find pockets of ash living areas that routinely get cold enough to kill the bugs and start protections there. And this study has been going on since the winter of 2014, so after those tree plots had been surveyed. There's a huge indicator that we have a lot of ash stands in our watershed. So there are 2 loggers placed per site. So 20 total loggers are put out in the watershed at 10 total sites. And we put the loggers, one at a low site right by the river and one at a high site. And these loggers are placed out starting in December, and we go collect them in March. So we hit that kind of span of the very cold winter months. And so here are a couple pictures of Jeremiah Walters, a naturalist with the St. Croix River Association, placing the emerald ash borer loggers out into the riverway. And so as you can see, the supplies needed to do this are very we don't need a lot of supplies, so that's great. So we just use some bicycle wire to attach the hobo logger to the ash tree or a tree that's close to some ash stands, and it's out from December to March. And we just secure it by using a U-bolt. And like I said earlier, a lot of the river valley is on on bluffs. I mean, the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway is this beautiful river valley full of bluffs, high spots, low spots. So we try to put one logger on a low spot by the river, in which these pictures indicate, and then we go up onto a bluff or a hill somewhere kind of higher where it would get different temperatures and different light, and put a logger up there. So we kind of get 2 data sets that we can pull from along the riverway. Here are other pictures of us placing the loggers out. On the right-hand side, you can see the hobo logger up close. So they're very small, but they are installed at breast height. And we always install them on the southwest side of the tree just to keep it uniform throughout the years. And so we do this starting in December, and we will collect them in March. Usually it consists of 2 long field days, especially since we have to drive a long distance to, go to the different sites throughout the watershed. As you can see on the left-hand side, that's down in Ferry Falls, just a little bit north of Stillwaters. That's one of our sites. And this is a beautiful sunrise. So there is some positives about waking up early and having long field days, getting outside in the winter for some field work, and installing these hobo loggers. And then on the right-hand side, that's a soon-to-be sunset at Sunrise Landing on the St. Croix River. And so usually, like I said, it takes us 2 days to put out these loggers. We split it up between the upper riverway sites and the lower riverway sites, and get them out and then collect them in March. And we'll actually be collecting them in a couple weeks to analyze that data from 2020, 2021. Results have shown that if emerald ash borer were to establish in the St. Croix River, St. Croix National Scenic Riverway ash dams, that there would be a roughly 98% mortality rate due to temperatures dropping well below 30 degrees Fahrenheit. We've had a lot of polar vortexes throughout the past years, and although those are cold, frigid temperatures, they do wonderful for EAB management and control. So we like our cold winters for that fact. And it is important that we keep collecting this data, especially with climate change. So ultimately, if climate increases throughout the winter months, there is a greater chance of emerald ash borer establishing and taking out a major contributor to the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway habitat, which then results in a continued issues down the road, just with loss of habitat with our ash stand. So although there, with the increase of climate throughout the years, it's still great that we're getting this data, providing it to the National Park Resource Management team, as well as the University of Minnesota. And it's a great partnership and collaboration that will continue for many years. So on that kind of daunting note, I will lead into some positive notes that there is a program that the St. Croix River Association partnered with the University of Minnesota. It was called the Wasp Watchers program. Unfortunately, it only went from 2014 to 2020. So last year was its last year, just with funding cuts. But this was a great citizen science project that we got to take part in with the University of Minnesota that aimed to engage volunteers in the biosurveillance of emerald ash borer. So what that is on the left-hand side, you can see the smoky winged beetle bandit, which is a native wasp. And these wasps are hunts for the metallic wood boring beetles, including emerald ash borer. So they don't exclusively eat emerald ash borer. They eat other wood boring beetles, but emerald ash borer is definitely on their menu. So the female wasps go and hunt for these different wood boring beetles, including emerald ash borer, and they bring that back to their nests. And they nest in sandy, compact soils, and less used baseball fields are an ideal habitat. So when we did do this in partnership with the University of Minnesota, we would go to a baseball field over in Taylor's Falls, Minnesota, in which there were known smoky winged beetle bandit nest sites. And we would go with nets and capture the beetle, or capture the wasps, to make sure that they were those smoky winged beetle bandits, and then look at their nests to see what kind of beetles they were collecting. So it really served as an early detection mechanism for emerald ash borer. So although this program is not in existence anymore, you can still do this on your own if you would like. And you can just report any findings to things like EdMaps or iNaturalist. So we still encourage volunteer participation with citizen science projects. There's another really cool thing about emerald ash borer, and they have a biological control. So very similar to the Galerucella beetle with purple loosestrife, they have a biological control, these wasps that are not native to our area, that feed on emerald ash borer and emerald ash borer alone. So the goal of EAB biological control is to use enemies to bring EAB populations into balance and reduce damage of EAB in our ash stands. Biological control is the only management option that can be applied at a forest landscape level. There has been and is herbicide and chemical use to treat EAB, but it's just on a forest landscape level, it's just not realistic. So that's why these biological controls come in handy. So there are 4 parasitoid wasps that can be released, and 2 species attack the larval stage that Colton had talked about earlier of EAB underneath the ash bark, and then the other species kill the EAB eggs that are in the bark crevices. These wasps are small like gnats and do not harm humans. They were selected by the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, otherwise known as APHIS, and Forest Service and tested extensively to ensure that they will not negatively impact other species or the environment. APHIS rears these biological control agents at a specialized facility in Brighton, Michigan, and provides them to states with EAB infestations. So the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources forest health specialists have released a total of 4 of these, or all 4 species of the parasitic wasp, jumbling on my words, in efforts to control EAB populations. Although only 3 species have proven cold tolerant enough to survive Wisconsin winters. So that means 3 of the 4 wasps that have been released have actually been able to have a reproducing population within Wisconsin and survive our very cold winters. So if you look on the map on the left-hand side, you can see in yellow all of the counties that have recorded EAB infestations. And then in red, those are the counties that have released those wasps as a biological control for EAB. So the southeastern side of Wisconsin has been really gung-ho on this effort, but hoping that as EAB potentially spreads, that we can get more counties on board and more biological control releases. So with that being said, what can you do, right? So while EAB is present in many Wisconsin counties, more of Wisconsin is still free of EAB than not. So many counties where it has been found have only small areas of infestations. That is why it is still critically important to limit the movement of ash wood and raw ash products. By taking these precautions, we all help slow the spread of EAB. So make sure you don't import materials to Wisconsin that could harbor EAB, such as ash firewood. Buy it where you burn it. So if you're going to go out camping this summer, make sure you buy local firewood and burn it on site and don't take it back with you. Remember that it is illegal to move all hardwood firewood outside of EAB quarantine areas. And then just become knowledgeable about recognizing emerald ash borer and remain vigilant to the condition of your ash trees. Like Colton had said earlier, it can be extremely tough to kind of diagnose your ash trees with EAB unless you find, those D exit holes or those S-shaped galleries. So just yard or on your hikes, just the trees around you and just the status of them. And if you have any questions, just reach out to a natural resource professional and we can help further. And with that, any questions?
Thank you so much, Katie and Colton. That was absolutely amazing. We are waiting for some questions in the chat. If you have any questions or comments or things you'd like to ask about based on what you've heard, please feel free to share. I have a couple questions here to kick us off. First of all, would the emerald ash borer tend to go for healthy or sick trees?
Good question. I don't think that matters. I do think that it depending on the tree status, it will for sure go to ash trees. The emerald ash borer doesn't eat any other trees, but I don't think it matters to them whether it's healthy or not. I think any ash tree is a good ash tree. I don't know, Colton, if you have anything to add to that. We're not huge EAB experts. We only do this project. So if you have any further questions about that, I definitely recommend reaching out to your regional forester and they can provide more detailed response.
Wonderful. Colton, any follow-up?
No, I think it's just whatever basically they can get to. It's kind of the easiest route to get somewhere and lay their eggs. They only live for a very short time, so they have to go when they can.
Very interesting. Thank you. Another question, how long does a tree have to be at the supercooling point to increase the mortality of the EAB insect?
Great question. So research about that is still happening. And so what I have heard from National Park Service resource management staff in the past is that, it just takes a couple days. Just a good week is great. The longer, the better for sure. But a couple days of 30 below zero weather will increase the mortality rate. And like I said, 98% is a pretty high percentage of that mortality rate of the larva stage of the emerald ash borer. And so longer the better, but I think a couple days is definitely a good precursor.
So the last few times that we've had a really strong cold snap has actually been really, really good for the trees in our beloved woodlands.
Yeah, absolutely. I always laugh when we, have our polar vortex or our week span of like very cold weather. It's like, oh, we got to bundle up, but it's a good thing for the emerald ash borer. Get rid of them.
Definitely. Excellent. Wondering also about the hobo loggers. What are the average conditions or temperatures that you tend to observe in the data that you're collecting from the loggers around the St. Croix River Valley area?
Yes. So another great question. So all of the data is analyzed by National Park Service Resource Management Team and then provided to the University of Minnesota. But throughout the last 6-7 years, it is very common to see 30 below plus degrees with that weather for at least a good week or multiple week time span. So I don't really necessarily, I don't know off the top of my head an average temperature, but definitely gets in those negative temps and stays there for quite a long time, especially in January and February. So
Interesting. Thank you. Another question about woodlands. How long would it take for emerald ash borer to spread through a woodland once it is present in a couple trees?
It doesn't take long. Like Colton had said, a female lays 60 to 90 eggs per time per year, and they go to town. So once it's established and once it's there and doesn't get those lethal temperatures and mortality rate, and it establishes in an ash stand, it's very hard to get rid of, and the easier it is likely to spread. A good example of this is a couple of the regional and state parks in Washington County. I can't remember exactly what year they had emerald ash borer show up, but within 2-3 years, it was all over. And it's a little bit hard, like I said, because the symptoms and signs of emerald ash borer can be super hard to detect. So unless you're actually looking for it, it could go unnoticed for multiple years until a tree starts exhibiting more obvious signs. But yeah, it can spread very quickly. Within 2 to 5 years, it can really take down an ash stand in a forest. Colton, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
I guess just another thing on detection would be if you're looking for those D-shaped holes, you can only see up 6-7 feet good, and there's a lot of tree left where they could be in. So it's kind of hard if you're looking for those as well, to really know it's there until it's kind of almost too late for the tree is when it typically gets identified or you figure out that it's present there.
Very interesting and good to be aware of too, especially if we have a lot of woodland property owners and people that are really concerned about woodlands that might be looking for something and not necessarily realize that they could be farther up. It's just a little harder to get that view.
Absolutely. But it is a proven fact that the emerald ash borer can span and spread across large areas, mainly by firewood, transporting firewood or materials that harbor either the EAB eggs, larva, or pupa stage, because like Colton said earlier, they only tend to fly less than a mile in their adult stage. And so, if you have a lot of ash trees in a stand close, they'll spread like wildfire. But it has definitely been proven that the transportation of firewood and other ash related materials that harbor EAB is kind of what causes the most widespread spread of EAB. So
one of the simplest things that everyone can do to stop that spread is get local firewood, it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely. And then in Minnesota, they actually do have MDA certified, which stands for Minnesota Department of Agriculture certified firewood. So if you were to transport that long distances, there are certain bundles of firewood that you can purchase at different stores or gas stations that do have that certification. So that's when you know that your wood is really safe, but that's in all the cases, that's not realistic. And so just making sure to burn it where you buy it.
Excellent advice and quite easy to follow, all things considered. Can do a lot to help our woodlands. Last question for you, unless we have any other questions coming through the chat, please continue to put those in the Q&A section if you have any come to mind. But last question for you is about climate change and the emerald ash borer. With rising temperatures anticipated for the St. Croix River Valley area, is there research currently into how that might impact the spread of emerald ash borer and control efforts?
Great question. So there's a lot of climate change research going on in not only the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin, but the whole world, the entire North America. When it comes to climate change and emerald ash borer, it's really likely that emerald ash borer can better establish itself in an ash stand in the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway, just because it won't hit that supercooling point that we've been heavily relying on the past 7 years where we've done this study. And so as temperatures increase, the less polar vortexes and the less cooler weather we'll have. And so the less mortality rate we would potentially have if EAB establishes itself within the watershed. So yeah, I definitely think that emerald ash borer has a better chance of establishing as climate increases. So, yeah.
I guess I'll add one more thing to that too, kind of on the other end is the adults really thrive when it's really warm and good temperatures. And then the larva technically won't have to, if it's warmer in the summer, they might not have to overwinter for 2 years instead of 1. So they potentially could, kind of go faster if it's warmer as well. So and not potentially overwinter for into 2 years. So
The whole process would speed up for sure.
Wow, quite a prospect. Thank you. That's very insightful. Good to know where things are at and where the research and the monitoring efforts are headed. And I know that there is a special field trip opportunity that both of you will be leading tomorrow from 1 to 3 p.m. Could you tell us just a little bit more about what participants who are joining you tomorrow could look forward to experiencing and learning about?
Yes, absolutely. So if you want to know more, it's on, Sophia, you can talk about this at the end, but it's on the St. Croix River Association website for sure, as well as the Wisconsin Water Week website. But we're meeting at the Osceola Landing in Osceola, Wisconsin tomorrow from 1 to 3. And we will be taking a closer look at those emerald ash borer loggers and talking a little bit more about the project. And then Colton and I will be talking about citizen science opportunities, such as, Colton, if you want to give some examples.
Oh man.
So we'll be talking about Project Red, which is a citizen science opportunity with invasive species. We'll be talking about Snapshot Day that happens in August, and just talking about projects around Polk County and the watershed that you could partake in throughout the summer, because a lot of reactions and questions that I typically get is like, what can I do? What can I do to help? I want to help out. And with this emerald ash borer project, we don't really have a citizen science component to it. But we have a ton of other opportunities throughout the invasive species program that you can help out with in 2021, hopefully safely and outside. I know people are itching to get outside. So come join Colton and myself at Osceola Landing tomorrow to dive more into the project and then get to know a couple opportunities that you could partake in this summer.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. To also open this up to anyone that's interested, this is open to the public. It's just a free event. We'll be meeting at Osceola Landing in the parking lot and getting an inside scoop on some of the monitoring efforts going on. So if you'd like to learn more and get an up close look at the monitoring efforts, please feel free to join us. More details can be found in the link in the chat or on the St. Croix River Association website. We've come to the end of our session. I want to thank Katie and Colton for their wonderful presentations and all of their great work. If you have any other questions that come to mind after the fact, please feel free to add those and we'll make sure to get those to our presenters. Please note that you now have a short break to visit the exhibitor and sponsor booths, network, and participate in a Wisconsin Water Week Challenge from 2:15 to 2:30 p.m. Your next session will be United We Can Solve This with Tia Nelson at 2:30 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day in the conference, and we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully.
Thank you.